All right, folks, we are on to task A3, actually conducting the control assessment. This is going to be a little bit of a long task, so hang on to your hats as we jump into this thing. In this task, we assess the controls in accordance with the assessment procedures described in the assessment plans that we just created in the last task. Potential inputs for this task include the security and privacy assessment plans, the security and privacy plans, and any external assessment or audit results if they're applicable. The output for this task is a completed control assessment and associated assessment evidence. Primary responsibility for this task is the control assessor, and the control assessor is supported by the authorizing official, the authorizing official's designated representative, the system owner, the common control provider, the information owner or information steward, the senior agency information security officer, the senior agency official for privacy, the system security officer, and finally the system privacy officer. This does align with the SDLC. For a new system, it aligns with development and acquisition and implementation and assessment. For an existing system, it aligns with operations and maintenance. There is no alignment to the cybersecurity framework. Control assessments determine the extent to which the selected controls are implemented correctly, operating as intended, and producing the desired outcome with respect to meeting the security and privacy requirements for the system and the organization. So the reason we do the assessment is to determine if the controls are implemented correctly, they're doing what they're supposed to do, and they're providing the right output. We do this with the use of an independent control assessor that assesses the system for the authorizing official to give them a true assessment of the control's implementation. The system owner, common control provider, and/or organization rely on the technical skills and expertise of assessors to assess the implemented controls using the assessment procedures specified in the assessment plans and provide recommendations on how to respond to control deficiencies to reduce or eliminate the identified vulnerabilities or unacceptable risk. So in addition to conducting the assessment, the assessor will also provide some detail on how to correct the vulnerability or the unacceptable risk. The assessor should do this at a high level and not determine the exact technical requirements that the system owner will have to implement, because the assessor doesn't really know the technical capabilities of the system or the system owner or the budget, but can define what needs to be done to correct the deficiency. The senior agency official for privacy serves as the control assessor for the privacy controls and is responsible for conducting an initial assessment of the privacy controls prior to system operation and for assessing the controls periodically thereafter at a frequency sufficient to ensure compliance with privacy requirements and to manage privacy risks. Controls implemented to achieve both security and privacy objectives may require a degree of collaboration between security and privacy control assessors. So in this statement, we're saying that the privacy controls are the responsibility of the senior agency official for privacy. They can determine how these controls will be assessed, and in the case where we have a control that fulfills both a privacy and a security requirement, it's important that the privacy and the security control assessors collaborate to make sure that the control meets both the security requirements as well as the privacy requirements. The privacy officer is also responsible for determining the frequency of reassessment during the continuous monitoring phase of the system's lifecycle. The assessor findings are factual reporting of whether the controls are operating as intended and whether any deficiencies in the controls are discovered during the assessment. So we want to make sure these controls deficiencies are factual. So we don't do assessments based on opinion. It's got to be based in true fact. And a lot of times we want to make sure that the findings we have discovered can be discovered again in a repeatable process. Control assessments occur as early as practical in the SDLC, preferably during the development phase. These types of assessments are referred to as developmental testing and evaluation, and that validate that the controls are implemented correctly and are consistent with the established information security and privacy architectures. We do these things early. That way, it's cheaper to correct any deficiencies that are uncovered by the assessor because the system is normally still undergoing development, and the people that are developing the system are the best people to make corrections. It's easier to do this in early stages of the SDLC instead of bringing those people back later after the system has been fully developed. Developmental testing and evaluation activities include, for example, design and code reviews, regression testing, and application scanning. Deficiencies identified early in the SDLC can be resolved in a more cost-effective manner. Assessments may be needed prior to source selection during the procurement process to assess potential suppliers or providers before the organization enters into agreements or contracts to begin the developmental phase. So we want to make sure that we assess these external providers early if we have the ability to do that. That way we can ensure their product will meet the requirements we set and not discover this later in the development of the system. The results of control assessments conducted during the SDLC can also be used, consistent with the reuse criteria established by the organization, during the authorization process to avoid unnecessary delays or costly repetition of assessments. So we're doing, if we can assess these controls early, and if it's done by an independent control assessor, we can reuse those assessment results later as long as the system hasn't changed and the controls haven't been modified. That's why it's important to use an independent assessor whenever we can. Now, this may be different depending on your organization, but the organization should define criteria for reusing these assessment results. Organizations can maximize the use of automation to conduct control assessments to increase the speed, effectiveness, and efficiency of assessments, and to support continuous monitoring of the security and privacy posture of organizational systems. So when we talk about automation, automation is going to expand the ability to look at more parts of the system more frequently and in greater depth. We can also use this process during the continuous monitoring of the controls. So if we can use automation during our assessment, it's best to do that. Applying and assessing controls throughout the development process may be appropriate for iterative development processes. When iterative development processes like the agile development are employed, an iterative assessment may be conducted as each cycle is completed. A similar process is employed for assessing controls in commercial IT products that are used in the system. When we talk about iterative processes, we don't complete the entire system and then make it available for the security control assessors, but rather we complete parts of the system that make it a viable product. And when that viable product is ready to go to the market or to be used by the customer, we want to make sure the control assessment on that piece of the system is completed prior to it being developed into production. Organizations may choose to begin assessing controls prior to the complete implementation of all controls in the security and privacy plan. This type of incremental assessment is appropriate if it's more efficient or cost-effective to do so. Common controls, like controls that are inherited by the system, are assessed separately by assessors chosen by the common control providers or the organization and need not be assessed as part of the system-level assessment. So a couple things going on in this slide. We can look at parts of the system that are ready prior to the entire system being ready. For example, documentation is often completed before the entire system is completed. So we can look at the documentation early and assess the documentation, and then maybe portions of the system will be completed prior to the entire system being completed. We can also look at those portions early to make it quicker to get through the assessment step. Of course, common controls are assessed separately than the system, and they're just inherited by the system owner. So we know those won't be assessed as part of the system level assessment, but they will get their own assessment, and hopefully that is done prior to the system being promoted into production, or essentially those common controls will not be valid unless they're assessed and have a valid authorization to operate. Organizations ensure that assessors have access to the information system and environment of operation where the controls are implemented, and to the documentation, records, artifacts, test results, and other materials needed to assess the control. This includes the controls implemented by external providers through contracts, interagency agreements, lines of business, arrangements, licensing agreements, or supply chain agreements. We want to make sure the assessor has access to all they need to be able to do a good assessment of the system and the security and privacy controls. That's important. We want to make sure they have access to all of this, or they can't do a full assessment. And some of the controls may end up being ineffective because the assessor didn't have full access. Assessors should have the required degree of independence as determined by the authorizing official. Assessor independence during the continuous monitoring process facilitates the reuse of assessment results to support ongoing authorization and reauthorization. So we want to make sure anytime the controls are being assessed to support either an authorization or a reauthorization, the control assessor needs to be determined to be independent. The system owner should also conduct self-assessments of controls, but to validate the controls are in place and operating as intended, providing the correct output, the assessment needs to be done by an independent assessor as determined by your organization. The independent assessor, as we talked about earlier, works for the authorizing official and serves as their eyes and ears on the validation that the controls are implemented correctly. To make the risk management process more efficient and cost-effective, organizations may choose to establish reasonable and appropriate criteria for reusing assessment results as part of an organization-wide assessment policy or in the security and privacy program plans. So when we determine what makes an assessment result valid for reuse, we need to make sure that's documented in organizational policy and procedure. It should be easy for the system owner to look at these documents and determine if a self-assessment or an independent assessment is required based on the policy of the organization. For example, a recent audit of a system may have produced information about the effectiveness of selected controls. Another opportunity to reuse previous assessments results may come from external programs that test and evaluate the security and privacy features of commercial information technology products, like Common Control Evaluation and Validation Programs and NIST Cryptographic Module Validation Programs. So this is a good example of when we may have assessments that are conducted outside of our assessment window that can be reused to produce the results we need for our assessment. If prior assessment results from the system developer or vendor are available, the control assessor, under appropriate circumstances, may incorporate those results into the assessment. In addition, if control implementation was assessed during other forms of assessment at previous stages of the SDLC, for example, unit testing, functional testing, or acceptance testing, organizations may consider potential reuse of those results to reduce duplication of efforts. So there are many cases when we can find control assessment results that can be reused in our assessment, but we need to make sure it meets the requirements of the organization. That's important. And finally, assessment results can be reused to support reciprocity. For example, assessment results supporting an authorization to use, as you'll see in Appendix F of NIST Special Publication 837. Additional information on assessment results is available in Special Publication 853 Alpha or the Assessment Guide. So reciprocity means that an organization can assess a system. Another organization may be able to implement that system without going through the assessment process if reciprocity is agreed between the two AOs. This reduces time to field a system and reduces the cost of fielding systems. So references for this task include 853A, Special Publication 800-160 Volume 1, and IR 8011 Volume 1. In closing, this module we discussed a lot of stuff. We talked about task A3, its inputs, outputs, roles, and responsibility, the SDLC and CSF lifecycle alignment, the assessment determination, technical skill and expertise of the assessor, privacy controls, the assessor findings, development, testing, and evaluation, the procurement process, SDLC, assessment reuse, the use of automation, iterative development, early assessment, assessor access, assessor independence, cost-effective risk assessments, self-assessment results, reciprocity, and of course, references. If any of this doesn't look familiar to you, I'd say go back and look at that portion of the video again. If it all makes sense, on to the next video, or if you're taking the class, on to the remainder of the course.